Hello everybody. And if you're anything like me, you're looking at shrimp and fish stuff on Facebook and YouTube and seeing what the world has going on out there. And my feeds on both have been completely bombarded by keeping tanks, fish tanks and shrimp tanks, and not having to do water changes. So now, in all these different Facebook groups, all these groups are just dozens of people asking if you can do a tank without doing water changes. And I guess, obviously, it's been done. I mean, it's pretty cool. It seems like, oh, I ain't got to do water changes. Seems easy. It's less work. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to make things way harder on yourself. And you're setting yourself up for failure, because doing this, especially with a shrimp tank, it's easier with a shrimp tank in some ways, and in some ways it's harder. Now, keep in mind, when I'm talking about the water changes in my tanks, and my experience is all with NEOCARIDINA. So keep that in mind. If you're keeping Caridina, this is going to be way different, and this is more of a water change theory video than it is a technical how-to video. So keep that in mind. For me, I like to keep things easy, even if it takes more work and effort, and will always do water changes. But I will share what I have learned through the trial and error I have over the course of the last 20 years of keeping tanks and the last 6 years of keeping shrimp. Taking out old water and putting in new water, I like to call it the great diluter. So you take out some of the bad and put it in new water, and it's all diluted. So what was a bunch of bad is now a little bad, and that's better. It's pretty simple and effective. So now I'm going to touch on why we need to do water changes. So this is how it works. This is just a summary of the nitrogen cycle. You throw in food, the food gets ate, and then shrimp or even fish. This applies to fish tanks too, not just shrimp. You throw in the food gets ate, and it gets turned into poop. And that poop is ammonia in the tank. That's the chemical compound that's bad and harms the shrimp. And then through beneficial bacteria, the nitrogen cycle, it gets broken down into nitrite. And then that nitrite gets broken down into nitrate. And that's the nitrogen cycle. And this is the whole idea behind why we need to do water changes. How do we get rid of nitrates? The easiest way, what I've talked about, is to just do a water change. Back to dilution, taking out the bad and putting in new with clean water. Now you gotta say, oh hell, this is super easy. All you gotta do is add plants. Plants soak up nitrates, and plants are supremely beneficial, and they are. All my tanks are loaded with plants, but I still do weekly water changes, and you wanna know why? Well, here's why, even if you don't wanna know. A lot of people, when you read these group posts and stuff about, oh, I've gone 4 years without doing a water change and everything's fine. Well, some people say they only do a water change when nitrates are high, but there's a whole lot more to doing water changes than just the nitrogen cycle and nitrates. Now this is the part that really plays in the shrimp tanks. Water is full of minerals. TDS is a term people use to describe how many minerals are in the water. It stands for total dissolved solids. Everybody has different water. Just because two people have the same TDS does not make their water the same. This is very important. Again, TDS stands for total dissolved solids, which means how many minerals are dissolved in your water in parts per million. It doesn't mean if two places have the same TDS, it doesn't mean they have the same water. It just means they have the same number of total dissolved solids. It doesn't mean they have the same numbers. One could have lots of good minerals that are useful, and lots could have none of the good minerals but all the bad minerals. But they still have the exact same TDS. So unless you know the exact makeup of your water, you really have no idea what is in your water. Now some people may bring up RO and remineralized water, which that's not for this video, but this is a good concept to remember. The TDS concept is a good concept to remember if you ever get into RO and remineralized water for your shrimp tanks. Now I don't do that because my shrimp are NEOCARIDINA and they do just fine in my tap water, but if I was going to try some caridina, that would be something I'd have to get into, but that's not what this video is about. The next thing I want to talk about is TDS creep. Now that we know what TDS is, the total dissolved solids, and creep, which would mean doing something slowly. So this is how it works. When you put water in your fish tank, it evaporates, right? And you want to top it off so it don't look bad and the filter ain't making lots of noise and splashing everywhere. So this is how TDS creep happens. The minerals in the water evaporates. The minerals in the water do not, however. So when you top off your tank with tap water, all the minerals that were in there before are all still in there. And even though all the old ones are still in there, you're adding more with the tap water. Since you have the same amount of water but more minerals in your tank, your TDS gets higher and higher. So every time you let some water evaporate and you add more without taking anything out, your TDS is going to get higher and higher slowly over time. You need to remove the water and the minerals and then add fresh water and minerals that were just taken out back in. The only way top-offs work is when it comes to TDS creep with RO water or distilled water, and that is essentially water that has 0 TDS, pure plain water. So the water that evaporates is replaced with pure plain water. And so then that's the only way to really do top-offs without running into TDS creep, is adding water that has a 0 TDS. So now if you're pretty sharp, you might be thinking, Mark, you're a freaking idiot. Plants use nitrates and minerals. Yes, that's right. And another problem, and that is even if you use RO water, do top-offs. So even if you use RO water, do top-offs, you're still going to run into problems. Plants need both minerals and nitrates. So plants, they're using up nitrates and minerals. Eventually, if you're just doing RO top-offs, the plants are going to strip the minerals out of the water, which now means your shrimp are not going to be happy. You're going to run into molting problems. Your calcium is going to be off because the plants are using that stuff up while they're using up the nitrates. They're using up all the minerals too. So then, if you run out of minerals, your plants are going to quit growing. And if your plants quit growing, then they're not burning up those nitrates anymore. So then if you're stripping all the minerals and nitrates out of the water, then the plants are going to grow. They're not going to burn up the nitrates. And so then you're going to end up being stuck having to dose fertilizers. For me, I don't like using fertilizers in shrimp tanks. It's just another variable that needs tested and complicates matters, when the easy answer is to just take out some water and put some back in. I'm not saying no water changes can't be done. Obviously it's been done. But it takes something that's easy and just to save time and effort, makes things way more complicated and lessens your chances for success. I fully believe that. For no water changes to work, you need the right plants in the tank in the right amount, the right environment with just the right number of livestock, RO water, and fertilizer. And then you got to feed just the right amount for the exact amount of shrimp and fish or whatever you have in there. And there's all kinds of other things you got to worry about. So water changes fixes a lot of problems. We operate in closed loop systems unless you have a trickle that's overflowing. You always have new water coming in. We have closed loop systems. And sometimes things just need to be diluted. So now I'm going to tell you about this summer. And this is my personal experience. This summer was a really hard summer for work. I was working overtime a lot. I was working 5 hours away from home. And it was hot, hot, hot. So after going and killing myself at work all summer long, all week, I would come home on the weekends, and that's normally when I do all my fish tank stuff. But I was too beat. And for a couple months, I was just doing, I think I did one water change in 1 month one time. And most people say, oh, that's fine. And I'm sure I didn't have any shrimp dying. I didn't have anything die. Everything still looked good. And if it wasn't for the fact of selling hundreds of shrimp every month, I wouldn't even notice the difference because I would still had a lot of shrimp and everything would have been good. But what made me notice is that my shrimp numbers started getting lower. I was like, well, I need to start getting back up on water changes. And then by the end of the summer, after the hottest couple months had passed, I got back into my routine and had the energy to get back into doing it like I like to do it. As soon as I started doing that, I started seeing lots of buried females, started seeing lots of little baby shrimp. And I have, if you guys have seen you've seen my tanks in this video. If you haven't, if you're new. And now I have, the shrimp are back to populating like crazy, despite me selling a whole bunch. So I could definitely tell the difference unless someone's taking out a bunch of shrimp. They don't realize there's not that many more new shrimp being made. As soon as I started doing the water changes again, then new shrimp started showing up. Again, everybody's water is different and everybody will have different experiences. But in theory, this is my theory, you're better off to do your water changes. I've seen it happen. I've seen what happens when you don't and what happens when you do. Several times. And this goes so much further than just shrimp. This is the aquarium hobby in general. So, I'm just some dumb guy on YouTube making videos. But, in my opinion, give yourself the best chance of success. Change your water. Make things easy. That's what my channel is all about, is making things easy. And trying to get the perfect balance of this, trying to get the perfect balance of that. Just feeding the right amount, just having the right amount of shrimp. There's so many things that got to fall into place for no water change tank to work. And I just don't see it being, it's feasible, but it's not ideal. Like I said, my shrimp slowed down breeding, which means they were still happy enough to be alive. They were happy enough not to die, but they weren't happy enough to keep breeding in the numbers I was used to. So I noticed it. Some people may not have noticed that if they did the same thing I had done. So I definitely think water changes are needed. And while I love, the video I'm talking about, I think it was an aquarium co-op video. I love Corey. I love aquarium co-op. He's one of the reasons why I got into doing this stuff in his videos. But I think these guys with huge YouTube channels, they need to be careful. It's cool to show people what's possible, and it is possible, that's for sure. But now, every Facebook group is filled with people who don't know what the heck is going on. And like, I got this tank, I don't want to have to do water changes. And they throw in a couple plants, and now they think they're good because they got plants and they don't have to do water changes no more. So, it's a slippery slope. And 99% of the time, not doing water changes is bad practice, in my opinion. Again, I'm just a dumb guy on the internet. So, hopefully, this was somewhat entertaining. So, thank you guys for watching. Bye.